Don't you ever fart on my tits again.
Hey guys, Jim here. Welcome in once again. This is going to be another episode of Guest Blade from one of the many knives that my buddy Derrick sent over to me in a very expensive package that was delivered to my mailbox. This is going to be the WE knife, Isham Designs Arrakis. And this is actually a knife that I had hoped at some point that I would have gotten on my channel when it was a currently available design. These are obviously no longer made. At least as far as I know, they're no longer made. I certainly haven't seen any out there available for quite a long time. One of the most intricate knives that WE Knives has ever made, and that really is due to Elijah Isham's very unique design language. And no matter what you think of Elijah personally, and there are people that have been kind of pro and con Elijah with the unfortunate events that took him out of everyone's lives and out of the industry. You can't argue the fact that he had a wild sense of design. And you would think that a lot of the things that he had designed would have proven impossible to bring to fruition, especially for a production knife that, number one, has to be done on a production line, not made one individual knife at a time by a custom knife maker, and also done in a way that can be made somewhat affordable. Now, these were not cheap knives by any standard, but they were still affordable in the world of higher-end production knives. And it's just such a crazy design. And to think that you could sit down and design this and believe that this could be executed. There's a lot of individual components that make up this knife. There's a lot of skeletonization. There's a lot of material being removed, especially in the blade, that you look at it and go, the technical drawings on this from the factory had to be an absolute nightmare. And I do love the fact that you've got these contrasting finishes and materials. So the main body of the frame is carbon fiber, skeletonized very, very heavily. And then you have titanium, which was being referred to, I think, as champagne titanium, which is a golden bronze anodized color in titanium. You've got pivot collars, you've got a flat-faced signature pivot on this side, the carbon fiber screwed into the rear section frame, which is titanium. There's a lot, oh my God, there's a lot going on here. The construction internally as well, because all of the sections you see here in the bronze titanium forms a subframe that goes and lines all of the carbon fiber, further strengthening the carbon fiber, and then also creating the lock. You got bearing pivot, it's a flipper, it's very smooth, very fast. One of the things that I didn't always appreciate about Elijah's designs are the fact that he really liked to put his flipper tab as far forward on the frame as possible. So for some people, it may be a bit of a reach to get to the flipper tab. And I don't know why he was very big on creating this sharp corner here, because that's actually where you're putting all of your pressure from your finger to get it to open. So, they weren't always the most comfortable knives to sit there and fidget with. But taking this wildly alien design and executing it into a flawlessly functioning knife makes it really, really special. Now, I know a lot of people have done reviews on this knife, and there's probably nothing that I'm going to tell you here that you don't already know if you've already watched them. However, I'm going to do my best. So let's get into the TLDW. That's the section I call Too Long Didn't Watch, because there are definitely a lot of people out there that look at the timestamp of a video and go, I don't want to watch no video more than 3 minutes reviewing a knife. I don't want all them details. Well, I'm here to give you details. If I'm going to sit down and take the time to photograph these and sit down with the video and talk about it and do an actual review, I'm going to give you as much information as I can. So, in this condensed section here, I'm going to give you the pros and cons, the things I like and things I don't like about any given knife under my lens. Now, getting into the Arrakis, starting with the pros, I mean, obviously, it's going to be the design. The design is the biggest pro of this knife. There are very clearly going to be people that don't like such a wildly crazy futuristic design. But I think even a lot of those people who personally wouldn't want such a crazy design in their life can recognize how wickedly cool it is. Another pro for me, as I mentioned before, is the combination of materials and finishes. If this entire knife were just titanium or just carbon fiber, I think it would lose some of its personality. This is allowing you to see that there are many different structures. It's not just machining different angles and different pockets and size and shape and windows and scallops and things like that, but these are individual different materials. And that makes this a much more complex knife in its execution. Never mind in the design. I mean, again, to sit down and sketch this out and then maybe render it in a computer and go, yep, I can turn this over to a production company and they can execute this. That has to be so nerve-wracking to wonder if somebody can create a vision as unique as this that will meet the expectations that you have as the designer. That's got to be really, really difficult. Another pro for me is going to be the action. It's smooth and it's fast, even though there's almost no weight to the blade, because it is very thinly ground. And there are lots of milled windows. There's not a lot of mass here to swing around. Yet the action is effortless. Feels really, really good. Another pro, the pocket clip. It's beautifully designed. It doesn't look like an afterthought to the crazy design that's going on all around it. It very clearly matches the aesthetic of the overall design, and it's functional. It will actually go in and out of your pocket the way that it's supposed to. Another pro for me is the fact that I can very easily engage, or I should say disengage, the lock. And while it looks like there's probably sharp edges there, there aren't. It really, really feels nice as you're manipulating the knife. Now, for the cons, and there's not really a lot of cons. One of the things that I don't like is as I'm holding this, again, you are having to change the position a little bit to extend your reach to get beyond that flipper tab that's all the way out there to flip it, so that what happens is it puts the one and only sharp area of the pocket clip digging right into my finger here. So I can kind of feel it a little bit when I flip it once or twice, but if I'm sitting here flipping it 10, 20 times, I really noticed that sharp little corner hitting my finger. Now, it's obviously not a really big deal, but it's something to be aware of if you're thinking of ever buying one of these on the secondary market. And it's just one of those things that you'd say, boy, I wish somebody would have mentioned that in a review somewhere online. Another con is going to be the fact that this is a rare piece at this point. So if you ever do find one and you get one for the price that you're willing to pay, it is unlikely that it's going to become an EDC knife. It's unlikely that you're even going to carry it hardly at all, because you're going to look at it and go, there are so many things about this knife that I love and I want to always have in my possession, but I can never replace this knife, or I may not ever be able to replace this knife if something bad happens. And there is always that fear with a rarer knife. Now, those of us that come from collecting custom knives, we're kind of used to that. Having a one-off custom that knife maker made with their own hands, their own blood, sweat, and tears, and only one of that exact knife exists, you're used to dealing with that fear before you start carrying the knife. But for a lot of people making their way from standard production knives into more rarefied specialty and collectible production knives, may kind of have a hard time balancing that. So do keep that in mind as well. Any other cons? I really don't see any cons. I mean, it's really crazy, stupid, lightweight. For some people, that may be a con because they're going to feel like, oh, it kind of feels cheap because it feels so lightweight. I don't fall into that category. I respect it for being as lightweight as it is. I enjoy that particular fact. But there will be people that go, ooh, that just feels dainty. It feels like it's made of balsa wood or something like that. So it might feel cheap to you because it's so lightweight. But do recognize it's intentional. It's in the design of the knife, not in the quality of the materials. All right, moving beyond that, we're going to get into the specs. You're looking at an overall length of 8 inches. Blade length of 3.45 inches. Blade thickness is 160 thou thick of Bowler M390. Everything that you see that is golden bronzed is titanium. Everything that you see that's black is carbon fiber. And of course you have the bearings around the pivot as well that allow for the action to be as slick and smooth as it is. Now, We Knife has done some really awesome stuff in the past few years. And quite honestly, they have become one of the top tier imported brands because of their unique designs, because of the partnerships with other designers that create unique designs, and their wonderful execution, their actions, their lockup, their finish work have all shown to be light years ahead of where they were even just 4 or 5 years ago. I was one of the first people to ever come out and review a We Knife, and I loved them. I thought they were great. I actually had a few in my possession to review, and I thought they were great. And it took a while for other people to kind of wake up and realize that how great this brand is and the potential that they had for the future. So I always enjoy my time spent with any We Knives. I think that they're generally really good value for the money. And that leads out of the spec section into more of my review and personal thoughts section. Continuing on with that, I think We offers great value for what you typically get. But that's not really all that different from Reich knives or Riot knives. Your top 3, your holy trinity, if you will, of the Chinese import big brands, they're the 3 that dominate because they give you the best value for your money. They give you the wildest designs, the nicest materials, a perfect seamless integration of all those materials, great finish, the works. They give you everything as premium grade as they can and still offer a really attractive price point. I tell you right now, if you pull this knife out in front of somebody that likes knives but doesn't really participate in the community, may not know a lot about various knife designs that have been released, they would look at this and go, man, that's got to be $1,000 knife. That's got to be some kind of crazy custom. And then they pick it up and hold it and go, wow, this thing is, it's nutty. It's crazy. I don't understand how somebody could have actually come up with this design and then manufactured it. And then when they see that it's not $1,000 knife, they're like, whoa, how? And that's the beauty of WE knives. And then going back to Elijah Isham, I think that he had so many more incredible designs in his mind that we would have seen over the next decade or two, however long he would have chosen to remain as a knife designer. He really had a unique eye for design, for how knives operate, for how how you can make them in sections and then integrate those sections into one cohesive design. He had a hell of an eye, and he was a really, really, really good designer. And I do think that we lost him a little bit too young. I think that had he lived on, we would have seen incredible things coming out. I wouldn't say practical knives, because very few of, really none of his designs were, quote unquote practical. But they were always still usable. No matter how insane his vision was, you still didn't get a knife that was so over-designed that it became cumbersome and didn't do what a knife needed to do. They were still easy to open. They were still easy to unlock. They were still easy to cut with. There were ergonomics that may not fit everybody's hand, but they were still comfortable for as wild and angular and crazy as his designs were. So I think that he added a breath of fresh air to the knife industry. I think that he offered us some really interesting conversation pieces. Even if you're not the kind of collector that buys anything that isn't practical, that isn't quote unquote EDC worthy, I think that you still appreciate his designs for the fact that it is a conversation starter and there is so much to talk about in what he was able to achieve. So no matter where you land on these alien type designs, these futuristic type designs, or on WE knives themselves, I think it's hard to deny that it is a wonderfully unique and masterfully made knife that was priced in a way that the masses could afford them. Anyway, that's my thoughts on the knife. Thank you guys, as always, for joining me. I will see you on the next video.